Welcome to the Spirit Airlines training video on management of abnormal operations. The purpose of this video is to demonstrate and highlight important information found in the FCOM and FCTM on managing an abnormal, specifically how to handle OEBs, the ECAMs, and the EQRH, and how to proceed once these actions are completed. The overall objective is to effectively manage a system malfunction while airborne or on the ground. We recommend that during the upcoming ECAM demonstrations, you follow along on your EFB step by step to reinforce your knowledge of handling of OEBs, ECAM, and EQRH. To do this, open the OLB, select FCTM, Airbus Operating Philosophy, Management of Abnormal Operations, Handling of ECAM, QRH, OEB, Handling of ECAM, and scroll down to ECAM Task Sharing. Once ECAM actions are complete, please continue on to Handling of QRH, and finally, ECAM, QRH, OEB actions completed. We recommend you have Layer 3 selected. Our manuals are always governing. If any information in this video differs from our manuals or future revisions, please always comply with our manuals and federal aviation regulations. Let's get started and jump right in to management of abnormal operations.
For this series, we will look at two different examples on handling ECAM actions. These particular examples were chosen to be relevant with our current LOE scenarios. The first failure is a green hydraulic system failure, which involves a primary system failure along with secondary system failures. The second failure is one which contains a system reset procedure. We will go through at what point and how to accomplish a system reset procedure appropriately. Without further ado, we'll go to Neil and John for our ECAM handling examples.
Hydraulic, green reservoir, low level.
Yep.
The first flight crew member who notices the failure pushes the master warning or caution push button in order to get rid of the oral and visual attention getters. After that, pilot monitoring announces the title of the failure. Before any action is taken, the pilot monitoring inspects the overhead and the associated systems display pages in order to confirm the state of the aircraft matches the failure message displayed.
There's no OEB immediate actions for this.
Not for this one.
There's no memory items, proficiency items.
I agree.
No. There's no regular OEBs either.
Nope.
Okay.
ECAM actions.
While it's not procedurally required to verbalize what we just saw in the video, the crew first considers whether or not there are any procedures that would supersede and therefore need to be performed prior to beginning ECAM actions. As a recap, Neil mentions memory items, proficiency items, OEB immediate actions, and OEBs. After all of these are considered, pilot flying says,
ECAM actions.
"Thanks, John." Once pilot flying says ECAM actions, task sharing changes to the abnormal task sharing rules defined in the FCTM. Pilot flying is responsible for the fly, navigate, and communicate actions, while pilot monitoring is responsible for monitoring the flight path and performing the appropriate ECAM, QRH, or OEB procedures. Let's continue on.
Hydraulic, green reservoir, low level, PTU off. Hydraulic, PTU off. Green engine 1 pump off. Hydraulic, green engine 1 pump off. Hydraulic, green reservoir low level, green engine 1 pump low pressure, green system low pressure. Clear hydraulic.
Clear hydraulic.
The FCTM expands guidance to what was previously taught related to the use of the overhead panel. As shown, when Neil, as pilot monitoring, performed any actions on the overhead, he first stated the name of the system, the name of the control, then the action, hydraulic, PTU, off. In addition, pilot monitoring should verify the action was performed by confirming it on the SD page. Once the ECAM actions for the primary failure are completed, pilot monitoring says,
Clear hydraulic.
Notice he uses the underlined name of the system. Pilot flying verifies ECAM actions are completed and then says,
Clear hydraulic.
This will clear the ECAM memo. If secondary failures are present due to the primary failure, the ECAM will present the system display pages for analysis after the left side of the ECAM actions are cleared. In our example, the green system led to secondary failures that can be observed on the wheel and flight control page. Pilot monitoring completes an analysis of the secondary failures by interpreting those system display pages one by one.
We have a wheel and flight control SD page. On the wheel page, we've lost spoiler 1 and 5. We've lost normal braking. We still have alternate braking. We still have anti-skid. We've lost auto brakes. Clear wheel.
Clear wheel.
Flight control. We've lost spoiler 1 and 5. We've lost the redundant hydraulic systems for the ailerons, the elevators, pitch, and rudder. Clear flight control.
Clear flight controls.
Status.
Stop ECAM.
This next part has been noted to be a common error among recurrent trainees, mainly due to the fact that this part of the procedure has changed throughout the years. When pilot monitoring reaches the status page, there is only one appropriate response: stop ECAM. Notice the task sharing table has this in quotation marks after pilot flying prompts the status page. Reading the status page immediately is no longer appropriate, and these are the reasons the Flight Crew Techniques Manual provides for us to always stop ECAM when reaching the status page. In all cases, the flight crew stops ECAM actions to consider 4 things. These do not need to be verbalized, but we will during this video as a demonstration. Consider the need to complete the after takeoff flow. Perform any normal checklists that may be pending. Consider any system reset procedures. Consider the application of the engine relight procedure after an engine failure with no damage. Again, please ensure that when you get to the status page, you always stop ECAM to address these 4 considerations. Also, pay particular attention to the callout done when pilot flying wants to get pilot monitoring to read the status page. It is continue ECAM. This replaces read status as a command. Read status is no longer an appropriate callout for this procedure. It's continue ECAM. With that being said, let's continue on.
After takeoff flow doesn't matter at this point. There's no checklists or anything that we need to do. Any resets?
I'll check the EQRH for a system reset.
All right.
Neil will now review the system reset procedures to ensure there's no reset for this failure. These are found within the EQRH, Abnormal Procedures, System Reset. If you're unfamiliar with the System Reset General section, please review it prior to attempting a system reset. If you are familiar with this information, you may find a consolidated list of approved system resets under the System Reset table. Another option is you can go directly to the procedure itself by scrolling through the list of our available system resets. Doesn't look like there's a reset for this particular failure. Let's see what the crew does.
Nope, there's no system reset for this.
Okay. Any additional procedures you can think of?
Not that I can think of now.
All right. Continue ECAM.
Status, landing gear, gravity extension, landing distance procedure apply. Alternate yellow brakes with anti-skid. Slats, flaps, slow. Cat 3 single only. In-op systems. Green hydraulic, spoiler 1 and 5, Cat 3 dual, normal braking, auto braking, landing gear retract, reverser 1, green engine 1 pump, yaw damper 1. Clear status.
Clear status.
ECAM actions completed. I'll check the EQRH for any additional abnormal procedures.
Sounds good.
Now Neil will go through the EQRH to determine whether or not there are any associated abnormal procedures. Please note that the title of the additional EQRH procedure may not necessarily match the original ECAM, but may be pertinent to the current condition of the aircraft. There are none for the hydraulic system to take care of at this time, but at some point they will complete the gravity gear extension in the QRH as depicted in the status page.
Under hydraulic, there's nothing for green system low pressure. But under landing gear, there is the gravity extension procedure.
You said that on op systems.
Okay.
Once the crew states ECAM actions complete, normal operations task sharing rules are resumed. We'll review the different considerations Neil and John will go through as per the FCTM, so please pull up this section displayed and follow along.
We have a little extra time. I'll check the FCOM for additional information.
All right, sounds like a good idea.
Since the crew is currently in the cruise phase, Neil decides to go to the FCOM to obtain additional information about the failure. The FCTM mentions that going to the FCOM is something you should do time permitting. Please don't take this to mean it is optional. So long as the flight is not prolonged to access the FCOM should be reviewed. Within the OLB, select the Flight Crew Operating Manual. Then select Procedures, Abnormal and Emergency Procedures. Then find the affected system. Then find the failure message. Feel free to push the Recall Push button on the ECAM control panel to make sure you have selected the correct procedure. Additional information can now be reviewed to enhance the crew's awareness before making a decision. As a reminder, select Layer 3 to make sure you review all the additional good-to-know information, as it may be critical information for further configuring the aircraft and making a decision. Now that the FCOM has been reviewed, Neil will continue on to review the status page.
Let's recall the status and assess the situation to make a plan. Okay. Gravity extension, we'll review that. Landing distance procedure, we'll apply this ECAM to FlySmart. Alternate yellow brakes with anti-skid. That's good that we still have anti-skid. Slats and flaps will be slow, so maybe configure a little early. Cat 3 single only, that's fine, we shouldn't need it. Green hydraulic, spoiler 1 and 5, Cat 3 dual, normal braking, auto brakes. Landing gear retract is going to be in op, so we can't retract the gear once it's down. So we'll think about fuel for that too.
You bet.
Reverser 1 will be in op. May cause a little controllability issue, but the runway's dry there. The green engine 1 pump is inoperative, we know that, and yaw damper 1. Okay.
All right.
All right, let's make a decision on where we should go. Is there any fuel penalty factors, landing distance penalties, and maintenance, operational, and commercial aspects of the decision?
All right.
Okay. Fuel penalty factors. I'll check the EQRH for that.
Sounds good.
The fuel penalty factors can be found within the QRH under the Operational Data tab. Review the use of fuel penalty factors table to determine when it is appropriate and how to calculate your fuel penalty for the failures you're experiencing. Next, you would proceed to the fuel penalty factors table. You would find your failure, then determine whether or not your failure meets the condition for which a fuel penalty would apply. Then you would obtain the fuel penalty factor and calculate the actual fuel penalty. In our case, we would only calculate a fuel penalty for the green system low pressure only if spoilers 1 and 5 indicate deflected, which is not the case in our scenario. Another useful factor that Neil mentions within the video is in case the flight needs to continue with the gear down, unable to retract. This is if the crew experiences a go-around and then has to go to another airport. At that point, you would calculate the fuel penalty factor for landing gear extended and gear doors open.
Landing distance penalties. We'll run FlySmart.
The landing distance procedure apply message means you should enter the green system failure within your FlySmart landing distance calculation as displayed here. Remember to obtain your VREF from FlySmart and not the FMGC.
Sounds good.
And operational, maintenance, and commercial aspects, I'll check with dispatch to see where they would like this jet. All right. Once we've made a decision on where we should go, we'll communicate that decision.
Okay.
ATC, if we need to tell them, we'll tell them. Dispatch, we've already told them. Flight attendant A, if applicable, and the passengers, if applicable. Great job on handling that ECAM, crew. Now we will take a look at one more ECAM, but this one will have an applicable system reset procedure that we will watch the crew apply. Brakes, system 1 fault. There's no OEB immediate actions for this. Nope, there's no member items. Proficiency items? No.
No.
Any regular OEBs for this?
Nope.
No.
ECAM actions.
Brakes, system 1 fault. Clear brakes.
Clear brakes.
Status.
Stop ECAM. So there's no after takeoff flow that we need to worry about now. No normal checklists or anything at all. Any system resets for this that you know of?
Let me check the EQH for a system reset. Abnormal system reset. Brakes, system 1 or 2 fault.
Okay.
Brakes, system 1 or 2 fault. In flight. If landing gear is up.
That's our case.
Anti-skid, nose wheel steering off. Wait 3 seconds, anti-skid, nose wheel steering on. All right, you agree I should do that?
I agree.
All right, anti-skid, nose wheel steering off. Anti-skid, nose wheel steering off. Anti-skid, nose wheel steering on. Anti-skid, nose wheel steering on. It looks like it was a successful system reset. If required, auto brakes rearm. After any BSCU reset, record BSCU reset in the logbook.
All right.
Okay.
Why should we do that?
I'll do an info only in the logbook.
Aside from the FOM, instructions on how to record an info-only write-up are found in the QRH, References, Discrepancies on the Ground Prior to Takeoff section, Info-Only Logbook Write-ups. Note that an info-only is appropriate for this reset not only because the reset was successful, but more importantly because the procedure itself specified a need to write up the successful reset. Follow the instructions to write up the info-only in the logbook.
The EQRH has an example of how to do an info only, so I'll reference that when doing so.
Sounds good.
I'll let MOC know. This concludes our video covering just a few examples of managing an abnormal. Please make sure you're familiar with all sections of the FCOM, FCTM, and the FOM that dive deeper into other aspects of this topic. We hope you have enjoyed this video. The more proficient you are with this topic, the better situational awareness you'll have when you encounter an abnormal. As a reminder, our manuals and regulations are always governing, and compliance with them supersedes any information found in these videos. Fly safe.